Robert, good to see you again, man.
Hey, man, good to see you too. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, dude, I've been wanting to get this podcast for a long time. We had the chance to do some barbecue a couple of years ago when you were in Provo.
Yes, it was great. You guys showed me around town. Obviously, I haven't been to Provo that many times, so... Honestly, what was the name of the place that we went?
It was Bam Bam's.
Bam Bam's. And I don't think we ate half of the food they brought out, but it was awesome. It was great. It was really great.
Well, dude, you're so much fun. You know, I love listening to you now. I love watching you play. Just like you do everything in your life with a certain passion that I think, above all else, I want to be around people that just love their life. They they just passionate about whatever they're doing. I even say, when people are like, who should I date? I'm like, honestly, find somebody that's passionate about something. It doesn't even matter what it is.
Yes.
But it's so fun to be around people that just love life, I guess.
No, I mean, it's that's a deep subject now. But it's just how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So for me, when I first got into TV 3 years ago, everyone's like, well, I didn't want to do it, first of all. I'm like, I don't want to be a talking head. I don't want these guys to hate me because I'm, tearing them down or using their name to prop myself up. And my agent at the time told me, well, you don't have to do it that way. You can do it your own way. So how I approach it is the same way I walk into the building every day when I was an athlete, when I was at Baylor, when I was in high school, when I go to play for the Washington Commanders and play for the Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns. Who you are when you walk in the building on day one is who you have to be when you walk in the building on day 5, 7, 365, whatever it may be. So you have to find someone that you can live life with that has that same passion. For me, I'm lucky enough. I got my wife, my soulmate with me, saved my life, helped me believe in love again.
Where'd you guys meet, or how'd you guys come across each other?
Well, I mean, I can tell you you want the real story, or you want just the fake story?
I want the real story. Your wife's from Estonia. That's so different than what
I had no idea where Estonia was.
Most people don't.
Before I met her, but I quickly found out because if you're trying to spit game, you gotta know where she's from.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So no, I mean, we met. I shot my shot in the DMs. And we met and really kicked it off at the Texas Relays in Austin. She ran at Florida State. I was there just as a fan, basically. And, one thing led to another. And now she's my wife, and I ended her professional career because I got her pregnant multiple times. But for me, it's having that passion with somebody that when you walk down the street or you go to the club or you go to the bar or the local Starbucks, you're not window shopping anymore. I tell my friends and my guys, if the girl that you're with doesn't make you forget about the rest of those girls out there, then she's just not the right one for you. How can you live passionately about her or with her if you're going to be passionate about somebody else when you see them? So that would be my encouragement to people, and it's possible. Yeah. It's, I know, hey, well, you're a man, you got to do this, and you see that, and that's not necessarily the case. You'll find that one person that makes you forget about the rest of the women in the world, and I'm lucky to have mine. I
love that, man. Well, it's fun to have you guys out here and be able to reconnect and everything. With you had this career in college where, I mean, you win the Heisman Trophy. Yep. You're at the peak of everything, and everything's just going amazing. Yeah. What is it like? Take us back to those days where everything is just falling into place and everything's working for you so well.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, but everyone looks at the glory, right? Man, look at him. He's a star. He's doing this. They're winning Heismans. They're winning all these awards, but nobody sees the story behind it, right? So before 2011, I tore my ACL in 2009. Before that, when I was in high school, I didn't start till I was a junior in high school at quarterback. And even that year, the coach put me on JV because I decided to play basketball in the spring, and they wanted me to only play football, to be focused on that and be there with the team. So I started my first practice as a junior on JV football. I was only on JV for a day. But then I became the starter on varsity. So I always say people want the glory without the story. Yeah. So the story, the build up to all that is years upon years upon years of pulling tires and doing extra workouts. And when I'm in junior high with my dad as my track coach, I couldn't skip out on the school track practice. So I had to double up practices in 7th and 8th grade, which, at that age, you don't think anything about it. But now as a 34-year-old, I'm like, what was I thinking? So for me, that story and that grind to get to that time is what made it so special. Yeah, I was at Baylor. To answer your question, I was at Baylor in 2008. when we were having to drive 25 minutes to get to the stadium to do our workouts because we had no on-campus facility. Ooh. We had no on-campus, locker rooms. Everything was at Floyd Casey, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way. They knocked it down. Everything's on campus now, but I saw that. So when we did get our on-campus facility, when I was a redshirt sophomore, and we did start to win games, and we beat Texas for the first time in UT in like 25 years or whatever it was, I had a better appreciation for that, more so than most people would imagine. So when I threw that touchdown pass to Terrence Williams in the corner of the end zone against Oklahoma, and we beat them on national TV in dramatic fashion, I'm flashing back to when we're having to the stadium, and I'm a freshman, and we don't know how to win, and our program doesn't really, there's no faith in our program. We're little old Baylor to all the rest of the schools in the Big 12. I could feel that as that process was going on, and I cherish it.
That's pretty special because, I always joke around, like, if people saw what it took to get where I'm at, like in my career with real estate, I was like, they wouldn't want to do it. They wouldn't want to be me all of a sudden, because it's like, there's so many, moments of despair and grind and just work. And the truth is pretty much anybody can hit a peak of something. I mean, you got to find out what you're naturally good at, and then you can become the best at it or hit that peak. But it does take that 10-year grind. And most people they're not willing to do it, or they don't believe it, or, maybe in your case you had, your dad was a track coach, and what a huge advantage you had to have somebody that could kind of just keep you pointed in the right direction.
Correct.
But what role did your parents play in your life in helping you to become RG3?
Yeah, I think it's both of these things work together. I'm a military kid, so I'm a military brat. In the military community, we don't that word brat doesn't have the same association as it does outside of the community. But they taught me discipline. They taught me what you put your mind towards and what you say you're going to do. You go out and do it. And if you start something, you finish it. So that discipline really helped me throughout the course of my life to help me overcome setbacks, obstacles, anything that comes your way. You have to learn how to manage adversity. So speaking of that story, 2008, I was a freshman All-American at Baylor. Well, I tore my ACL fourth game of the year in 2009. And at that time, 2009, ACL is pretty still taboo. Like, I don't know, is he going to be able to come back?
Especially the way you played.
Exactly. So you talk about having to go through that grind. And I had to figure out how to walk again. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. And those are parts of the journey that people don't see. And honestly, they don't care about unless you can get to that Heisman or you can get to the NFL and have that impact. Well, my parents were only an hour away because I grew up in Coppers Cove, Texas. Shout out C-Town. So they would come up all the time, and they just instilled into me that drive. Like, how am I going to get better during these next 8 to 9 months as I'm learning to walk again, as I'm learning to run again? Am I going to have that same passion for the game of football, or is it going to be greater? Am I going to let this injury topple me, or am I going to conquer that injury and come back stronger and be better? So they helped me through that whole process, but they didn't help me just when I was a 19-year-old kid. They helped me when I was a 6-year-old, and they brought me up in the church. They helped me when I was a 13-year-old, and I had to make decisions for myself now because I'm a teenager, and I have to accept Christ into my life. All those different things my parents instilled into me and helped me become the person that I am today, and it's why I've been able to overcome all these obstacles and get to life the way I have.
Well, you have a very unique story, man, and I don't know if you appreciate, I'm sure you do, but the value that you bring to the everyday person, because you have had the highest highs and you've had some pretty low lows, man. And you get drafted second overall to the Commanders, and pretty shortly after, you have some pretty devastating injuries and never really got to take off the way that I guess your rookie year, you had this huge year, right? And everybody's, my best friend, he's a Commanders fan. So trust me, I've heard way too much about you, bro. But I think that's what gives so much uniqueness to who you are and the way, and how much, having a Christ-centered life and having such a grounded person, overall being in you helped you. But I really think that that's why your story resonates with so many people, is every time you keep having these highs and then get knocked back down again.
Yeah, I think for me, it's everyone wants to be relatable, right? I feel like that's what content creators are trying to do. They try to show you different scenarios that you're like, man, I remember when that happened to me when I was in high school, right? It's relatable. It's very hard to be relatable when you are a spoon-fed kid, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but trust fund baby, that maybe didn't have to have the struggles in life. So for me, I am a small town kid from Copperas Cove, Texas. Yeah, I was born in Japan, but my family was in the military, and my dad had to wear holey socks and holey shoes, and I got Jordans when I was a kid, but I didn't get the brand new Jordans. I got the Jordans from 7 seasons ago that were on sale at the PX, right? And my dad would have to sacrifice so that we could have those things, me and my 2 older sisters, so that, we could go to school and feel good about having a nice pair of tennis shoes while he's walking around with shoes that are 7 to 10 years old.
Wow.
So when you talk about that journey and how people can connect to it, we've all been knocked down at some point in our lives. And it's how you respond that matters the most. And that's something that I take to heart. You always hear people say you can't have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. You've got to be all in on plan A. And I disagree. I think you can have multiple plan A's. I think my plan A's are being the best husband I can be, being the best father I can be. And when I was a player, it's being the best player I can be. As a broadcaster, it's being the best broadcaster I can be. But guess what? All those things work together. So I'm not going to do anything that's going to sacrifice me being able to be the best husband or the best dad or the best broadcaster. How can you do all those things? Well, if I give 100% effort in every single one of them, they're all going to piggyback and benefit from each other. So that's where I look at the relatability is I'm in an international, interracial relationship and a blended family. There's probably nothing out there that we have not experienced or can't touch on. And to me, you have to pull on all those experiences to help lead and make an impact in the world.
Well, I think, again, it's just you're a uniter, man. You're a guy that brings people together. And I think even in your own marriage, I see it on Twitter and stuff. And it's cool, man. It's like I love to see it because people aren't used to it. They don't know what to do with it necessarily. And they're like, wait, if RG3 is like showing the example of how to do all this.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, by the way. It's our world is so divided now. And it feels like you have to make a choice. You're either over here or you're over there. There is no middle ground. I'm like, well, there is a middle ground, guys. Like you can be an African-American or be a white person or be any color in between and not have to hate the other side. Like we can all love and be joint and be together. And that's the beauty of America is we're a melting pot country. My wife is from Estonia. They've got 1.1 million people in the country. Well, we have that in small cities, right? So as big as we are, we have so much diversity. We have to be willing to listen to each other and have tough conversations. And my life experience is different than your life experience. But I want to know. I want to know about your life experience. I want to know what you've experienced in life. And I want you to be able to listen to what I've been through. And then we come to a common ground. Yeah. And that's kind of how I use my social media is to say, yeah, I've got white in-laws. What's wrong with that? We like to have fun together. We like to talk about different things. We like to dance. And I can learn from them just as much as they can learn from me. And I think having that open mindset, if people just opened up their minds a little bit, it's not about clicks. It's not about views. It's about connection. And I feel like the world needs to get back to that.
Yeah, I always say the devil divides us and God brings us together, And so for me, I'm always doing things that bring people together. Like I want to create scenarios where, because I had, growing up in Utah, I mean, it's probably the whitest place in the country. Like it's at least the most in a bubble, Right. I mean, you were there. Did you see another black person while you were there?
Maybe in the booth. But that's how it is.
My point is though, so growing up, it's not that I just was unfamiliar, right? So it's a little bit scary. And then I started traveling the world. That's why I told your wife I've been to Estonia. She was probably a little shocked because who's been to Estonia? But I've been to 112 countries. I've been around the world and I've seen these things. And when you go and you put yourself in those positions, you see that everybody's the same, man. They want to love their family. They want to experience beautiful things in life. Yep. They want to love each other. And so it just gives you this appreciation for the differences.
Correct.
And I hate it feels like the media is pushing so many agendas where they just want you to pick a side. Yeah. And they're trying on every single issue to pick a side. And so I kind of love the idea of just no, I'm going to be the person that one day I might believe this and this day and this and both those are okay. And I like to be able to change my mind, because as I get new information, I do learn new things.
Yeah.
And you do a great job of that, man. And it's one of the things that made it fun to listen to you. It's been fun to listen to you call football games because the same thing. You're saying stuff, and you said a couple things during the BYU game. I don't even remember what they were, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so healthy for my fan base that I cheer for BYU to hear this different things that you were saying. And it was just fun. And everyone, by the way, everyone loved it. Like everybody it was the talk of Utah for a week was like 3 or 4 things that you'd said that were just different and funny.
I remember it was the Baylor game.
Yeah.
Right. It was the Baylor game at Provo. So it goes back to what you were just saying about having to pick a side. We need everybody. Mm-hmm. We need the people who think this. We need the people who think that. We need all the people in between who think something different. But we have to have a conversation. Mm. And we don't do a good job of that right now. We do a really good job of steering people to the far right or steering people to the far left. But we don't make spaces where we can actually have a great conversation, and maybe you can change your mind without that base saying, "Oh, he's a sellout. He's not down," or whatever. So when you bring that conversation to the football games, I approach it the very same way that I approach everything in life. I'm going to give it my all. I'm going to come to Provo, and I'm going to know everything that I need to know about BYU, about the traditions, about the fans, about how their season is going, about the coach's history, the players' history. And I'm not just going to do that for BYU. I'm going to do it for Baylor. Mm-hmm. And people will say, well, you know Baylor. It's like, yeah. But guess what, guys? I haven't been in college in 12 years. So I can't just rest on what I remember Baylor to be. I have to actually see what Baylor is now. And that's how I approached every game, is not to say, well, I went to Baylor, so I'm going to just call the game for Baylor. No, there's going to be BYU fans that are watching that game, and they're going to love the fact that when their linebacker comes downhill on a run play and I say he just baptized the guy from Baylor that's running the ball, they're going to resonate with that. Yeah. Not only is it a great play by the linebacker, but both of these Christian institutions are going against each other. And it's okay to have fun with that in a right way, in a respectful way. So I just try to approach every game as I don't have to be far right or far left, just like I don't have to be far right or far left in life. Yeah. I can be fair. And I've called, 6 Baylor games in my 3 years when I was working at ESPN, and I called them all down the middle because I can't call the game in favor of one person or the other. So I can't call life or live my life in the same way. I have to live life to give back, to connect people, to have fun, to put a smile on your face, to motivate. And that's how I approach everything.
That's beautiful, man. When you got to the NFL, this lifetime dream, you get a big contract. Yeah. Again, the number 2 pick in the draft, like you can't ask for more than that. Take us through that first rookie season when you're just dominating and you're kind of changing the game a little bit. They'd seen it before a little bit here and there with different guys like Mike Vick, but you were really taking it to another level.
Yeah, first of all, the main difference between college and the NFL is you go from 18 to 22-year-olds that you're growing up with and becoming a man with, to now as a 22 or 23-year-old, you're throwing the football to 34, 35-year-olds who have 5 kids, a mortgage to pay for. They might be paying for their mom and dad's mortgage as well. A couple brothers and sisters hanging around, the cousins from back way. So the priorities completely change. And being able to connect with those guys in the right way is the most important thing. So when I was a rookie, I felt like all I can do is show them that they can trust me, show them that they should be led by me, as opposed to telling them, hey, follow me, guys, I got you. It was, let me show them on my play. And that's what we did. And that to me was the only tough part of my NFL career, was the fact that after that rookie year and getting hurt, I wasn't able to get back. And I rushed back that next year to play, which I shouldn't have. And I've been on record saying that was my biggest regret.
Was that your choice or the team's choice?
You're
just competitive.
Every player wants to play.
Yeah.
All right. So we just had the situation with JJ McCarthy, right? Tears his meniscus. Well, do you repair it or do you just scope it out? Well, if you want him to have a 15 to 20 year career, you better repair it and just let him sit on the sidelines and get better mentally and heal up fully so he can go play. So for me, the decision was, do I come back and play week 1 or do I sit out half the year or do I sit out the entire season? I wanted to play. I've never shied away from that. It's an organization's job to protect a player from himself.
That's true.
So the Vikings in that moment, they protected JJ from himself, because I can promise you now, I know JJ. JJ wants to play.
He wants to play.
He wants to play.
Especially as a rookie, you're coming in. The team's actually a good team.
He's balling in camp, and he's doing great in the preseason game. So that great on the Minnesota Vikings for doing that. For me, it's not, no point in fingers. Just saying, listen, I wanted to play. The team's job is to protect the player from himself. Because that whole thing went down, and I never got back to being righteous soon enough, the injury clearly then piled up, and I wasn't able to continue to show them, hey, you should follow me. Because one thing that I know, and you know this, in life, winning cures all. I've been on some teams that won division titles that were the worst teams ever, infighting, drama. And then I've been on some teams that were like, everything is great. We boys. And they were the worst teams.
Can't win a game.
Can't win a game. So it all comes down to winning in the NFL. And when we were winning my rookie year, everything was great. Nobody had anything bad to say. I could be in 75 commercials. It didn't matter. But when you stop winning for whatever reason, injury or anything in between, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. And you have to understand that those guys that you're trying to lead also have jobs and mortgages and bills to pay. So they're going to gravitate towards the people that win.
Yeah, I've interviewed, I don't know, a couple dozen NFL guys on my podcast, and they all say the same thing. They're like, yeah, college, you'll help the guy coming after you because you want to help the school, you want to help the team keep progressing. In the NFL, they're like, go screw yourself. Like, they don't even talk to you if you have a chance to take their position.
Yeah, listen, you got players, like I told you, 35 years old. They know, hey man, I might not even have a month left of my career. They're trying to do everything they possibly can to stay on. And I think that is the good juggling act in the NFL of, you have coaches that they're not growing young men. They're just trying to maintain their job and go win a Super Bowl. So the best teams are the ones that have the veterans who aren't afraid to give back to the young guys, because they know they're gonna, at some point, this young guy is gonna have to help. If I'm a 34-year-old receiver and I'm only playing in the slot and I go 5 plays in a row, there's a good chance I'm probably not going to be able to go 6. This young guy's going to have to go in and make a play. And if I don't teach him in a way that I give him the tools and the knowledge that he can probably replace me, when that moment comes up, what if he drops that pass or he runs the wrong route at the end of the game that's supposed to send you to the Super Bowl or win you the Super Bowl? I know you want to be that player that's doing it, but you got to teach this guy because he could be the reason you get a ring. And not everybody views it that way, because in life, everyone's world is me-centric, right?
Yeah, whether we want it to be that way or not.
So the best coaches, for me, John Harbaugh was my best coach when I was a pro.
Yeah, man.
Dan Campbell with the Lions. You talk about Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. If these guys, Andy Reid, with the Chiefs, can't dynasty, can't not mention him. The way they get through to players and how they lead their teams is what makes them great. They get those guys to buy in, give back to the young guys. We're going to take care of you, but we need you to teach them, because if you don't teach them, we can't win.
Wow. So for you, again, being so athletic and knowing that you can still perform at the highest level, how hard was it for you to eventually walk away? Because I think most guys in your position would have just kept trying and kept trying, and you kind of made that decision of like, you know what, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's tough. We revolve our identity into what we do. And anyone that tells you they don't is lying. You just have to find your new identity.
Well, I just did a podcast today with Goose Gossage, and that guy retired in 1994. And I'm just going to be real for a second. Like, you can ask my podcast director, we felt bad for him because the dude's like all bitter because he's never been able to adjust anything else. He's just like kind of bitter at baseball and kind of bitter at, like the Yankees. And he literally yelled at the camera and stuff, it was pretty wild. But no, and all it was, my heart went out to him because I'm like, this guy for 22 years was like playing in front of 50,000 people every night. Like, he had so much purpose, and it just like, of course it's going to be hard to move on from that. Right. And like to be able to find your next thing after that.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of players struggle. most guys that make it to the NFL or the NBA or the MLB, they've been the guy forever, right?
Well, I know the best guy I ever played against in high school didn't make it to a D1 college. It's like, let alone the guys at D1 college that don't make it to the NFL and everything else.
But the guys that get to the pro ranks, very rarely was that guy not that guy. There's not very many Cooper Kupps out there, but guess what? Cooper Kupp was that guy in high school. Like, no wonder, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we all revolve our identity into that. For me, what I would say is I had that year off in 2017, and I trained every week like I was playing. I adjusted my schedule to what it would be if I was playing on a team, so I'd be ready to go, and not just like grinding the training 7 days a week, because that's not smart to do. And I got calls, but I didn't get the contract. And for me in that moment, I was at home every day. I got to see our daughter Gloria grow up, obviously get born and then grow up and be there as a present dad. I got to be there for my wife when we're having our first kid. And that changed my perspective on it. Now, I did go to Baltimore 2018 and was there for 3 years through 2022. But it gave me a sense of purpose outside of football. So although most would look at that year and be like, man, this is the worst year ever. It was like, for me, I knew coming out of that year that I wanted to play football still, and I went and I did it for 3 more years. But I also knew that if I didn't have football, I was in a great place in life personally that it wouldn't be my whole identity. Because your point is well taken. How many places can you go where if you play at Texas, right, and there's 100,000 people at the stadium, how many places can you go or things can you do that is going to fill up a stadium or a room like that?
Yeah, you better find a way to get that significance fulfillment from within, because you can't replicate that.
If I'm coming out of the tunnel, right, smoke's flying, I got the flag, and I'm running out. Where am I doing that? At Walmart? At Target? I'm not going to get that experience. No matter how many fan festivals you go to or signings you go to, you will never be able to replicate that. So I look back on it with joy, like, wow, that was pretty dang cool.
I got to ride that roller coaster.
I got to ride that roller coaster. Yeah. It's the theme park. You're going to Six Flags. That was Six Flags. Well, guess what? At some point, you got to leave Six Flags. You got to go back home. So now what's fulfilling you? So I find that fulfillment in my family, in being a husband, in being a dad, and then connecting people. I want people to feel motivation. I want them to feel that they can go accomplish every dream they've ever set out for themselves. It just takes hard work.
Yeah. Well, I think somebody like you has the opportunity, if you want to stay in broadcasting, to do that. If you want to go into the coaching route. Yeah. Have you ever thought about like coaching, and does that call to you at all? Or
I have, man. I mean, to be honest, I've thought about coaching. Coach Prime at Colorado doing what he has done, I think it motivated a lot of players to go into coaching. The biggest issue with coaching from a football perspective, because I coach my daughters. I coach them in everything. Me and my wife, we coach them in soccer, basketball, tennis, boxing, right? Our daughter Gloria's got some hands.
I love that.
But we coach them in everything. But it's, from an NFL perspective, how many former players do you see that are head coaches? You don't. But we got our guy, JJ Redick, who went straight from First Take to becoming a head coach.
Well, I just interviewed Doug Gottlieb, and he just went from, he's actually still running his podcast. Correct. And he's the head coach at Wisconsin now. Wisconsin Green Bay.
So it's like, in basketball, you see it more often. Steve Kerr, Steve Nash was a head coach there for a little bit. But you see it happen faster for them in the NBA. In the NFL, it's the good old boys league, and you got to start at the bottom. Kellen Moore was a quarterback coach in the OC the next year. Yeah. That's very rare. It's very rare. So I think Deion has inspired guys like myself and others that, head coaching is something that you can do, and you can potentially do it with no experience. What he did at Jackson State was incredible.
Well, and you have the football smarts, you have the connections, you have the personality to be able to go in and have a Deion-like effect.
I appreciate that.
It'd be fun if you do it, man.
Listen, I always tell people there's only one Deion.
That's fair.
And there's only one.
But he also has his weaknesses, right? That he lets that ego get in the way a little bit. Whereas somebody like you's a little more grounded.
I wouldn't say he lets his ego get in the way. I think that Dion, in my opinion, knows his weak spots. Right? Could I call plays? Yeah, I could call plays. Would I rather have a guy that's called plays for 15 years call plays? Yes, I'd rather have that guy call plays.
Yeah. So
for me, it's like, I think Dion knows his weaknesses, and even in his first year at Colorado, I think he had 7 head coaches on staff, 7 former head coaches on staff, which is smart for him because not only do those guys have head coaching experience and they can help him when he's coming up short there, but they have play calling experience and they know how to manage a team, and he's doing it in a new age way and being bluntly honest with these guys. But what he's trying to do is find people that have common ground. So for me, it's like, yeah, is that an inspiration? Sure. If a team came to me and said, hey, Rob, we want you to be the head coach at our university and we're going to pay you boom amount of money. Yes, I'm going to go put together the greatest staff you've ever seen because I have no insecurity there. I know how to lead.
Well, that's a nice part about having such a successful career. I mean, winning the Heisman Trophy, you're never going to try to live through your team.
Oh, no.
You know, and you're just going to be able to be that coach that is grounded in all that.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, the game has changed a lot even since you played. You got the NIL money now. How different would have things been? I mean, you would have been the highest paid player of NIL. Yeah. Like how different would things have been in college if you were getting 10, 12 million a year?
Yeah. I mean, I told this story before. First of all, if I was getting paid 10, 12 million a year, I would have been in college for all 4 years. Probably would have tried to find a way to come back for a 5th.
You would have stayed?
Right. I would have stayed because the traditional growth for a player was you high school, you're not making anything, right? You're grinding it out. You get to college, you're grinding it out. You're trying to win conference championships. You're trying to win a national championship because even the smallest school, that's the worst school in the Power 5 or Power 4 conference, is trying to win a national championship. They're not training to win one game, okay? But now that's changed. Right? They're still training to win a national championship and training to win games, but now you know that you can go and you can leverage your name, image, and likeness to a school that you're going to. And you can make generational money and wealth and start building that as soon as you get to college, as opposed to having to wait 3.5 years, 4 years till you go pro. So that does change things a lot. And I'm happy for the players because I've long believed that the NCAA and the college institutions have been taking advantage of student athletes for a very, very long time.
Well, and it probably weighed on you guys a lot too, just like, maybe not so much in your case, but I know a lot of players. I had a couple that lived with me when they were in college, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and they didn't have enough money to go on dates. They really didn't. Like, I would just keep the house full of food and leave my car keys on the counter. Like, I had a Jaguar. Like, guys, if you want to go. One of my buddies was playing tight end for BYU, and he wrecked my car one night. I'm like, okay, well, did anybody catch you? He just hit like a thing in the road. And I was like, no. I was like, cool, you're good, dude. Go to bed, But like, my point is like, he was so worried, and all he wanted was to impress his date. Yeah. He didn't even have a car, And this was like a 4-star recruit playing football at D1, a major D1 school. And so I was like, I think it would have been nice to not have to worry about a lot of those kinds of things.
Yeah, and you see now with the kids, not the kids, let me take that back. I hate when people call them kids. My kids are kids. Sure. You see it with the young men and the young women now that you see the flashiness because that stuff pops on social. So, hey, this guy's got a Lambo and this guy's got a Porsche and this girl's got this, Cartier deal or whatever it means. Is it Cartier or Cartier? I don't know.
Sure.
Whatever it is, they went to Jared. All right. So you see all these things that pop on social media. But that's not really what it's about. Your example of not having enough money, I know me and my wife have the same experiences. And people will say, well, you got a full ride scholarship. You don't have to pay tuition. And you don't have to pay books. You don't have to pay housing. It's like, well, we also couldn't work.
Right.
You could go get a full ride or get a half ride and then go get a job and pay for everything and still have money left over. We couldn't even work. So I'm paying for my off-campus housing. And then I'm having to use $150 for the rest of the month to get meals. Yeah, I don't got to pay for books and all this other stuff, but I'm also training till like 9 p.m. at night and then having to go do my homework at study hall for an hour or 2 hours and then get right back up at 5 a.m. the next morning and go train again. And they're like, oh, well, you got a full ride. We don't care about that. It's like, well, now you have, back then players were struggling.
Yeah.
And you saw guys getting in trouble because they wanted a tattoo or they wanted some J's or they wanted to get a free box of pizza.
Yeah, I remember a BYU basketball player got suspended for, I think it was a trip to Harry Potter World.
And they're like, well, what's he doing then? So, well, we want to live and have experiences as well, but we couldn't do that. Now they can. And let's make no, mistake about it. Not every single player in college football is making millions of dollars. No. Actually, very few of them are, but at least they have something on top of what the school is giving them. I thought years ago, if they just gave every single student athlete at these Power 5 schools a $5,000 stipend, they wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah, it would have solved it.
It would have solved it because that's all you need.
Yeah, they just wanted enough to be comfortable.
You don't need $1 million, but I'm not going to sit here and say we should cap them and they can't make $1 million. No, make your millions. Yeah. If that's what your worth is, that is what your worth is. I'd have been good with $5K. All right. And I know a lot of other student athletes, during my time would also been fine with that. But now we're in this situation because they didn't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be a fun year because they're gone to the 12-team playoff, first time doing it. What that would have changed things a lot for you because you'd have played in that a couple of times, yeah?
I think so. I think if it would have been 12 teams, we would have made it that my last year in college.
How fun would have that been, man?
It'd have been awesome. And Baylor was still considered a small school. I think it's still considered a pretty small school.
Yeah, I think you changed its whole perception though. I mean, it really started with your the teams you were on.
I appreciate that. We also had Brittany Griner on the basketball team, and we had Epe Udo and Lace Darius Dunn, a bunch of guys on the basketball team that really did a great job with Scott Drew. Being the coach there. I was supposed to play there at Baylor, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I promised him I'd play as a senior, but I never made it to my senior year.
There's no way your parents / teammates / coaches were going to let you do that.
So that would have been fun. But I just think, for us at Baylor, there was this, like I said, that perception of us being that small school. And, to be able to overcome that from a national perspective was something I truly took pride in.
That's fun, man. Who season's about to start? Who you got this year? You've been studying the teams?
I have.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Getting ready for the season.
Already in the season. But we'll leave that for another day. You talk about the 12-team playoff. What I had a chance to play that when I was in college would have been awesome. Now, when we look at the last structure, it was always the 5th team. 5 and 6, who's out? Well, guess what, guys?
Yeah, last year Florida State got left out.
Guess what? It's going to be, they got left out, and they shouldn't have. Now it's going to be, look at 13 and 14, But I think it'll be fun because you're going to see some non-traditional matchups. I just hope that it becomes what its intention is. The intention is not for 7 SEC schools to get into the college football playoff.
And right? 5 from the Big Ten.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was playing NCAA, the new game. It's a great game, by the way. It's very fun.
You ever play yourself back in the day?
I have. I'm actually in the game now, so let's go make that happen. But when I was playing back in the day, I always played with Baylor. I only played with my guy, and it didn't matter what mode it was. It was my guy. I lived for this. I worked for this. You want that to happen, so I'm excited that the young athletes now get a chance to experience that. But I'm going through dynasty mode on NCAA, and I tweeted about it. It went bananas because it's the truth. I'm in the game. I'm playing as Baylor. My quarterback wins the Heisman Trophy. We go undefeated in the Big 12, win the Big 12 championship, and they ranked us 4th in the college football playoff behind a 3-loss SEC team, a 2-loss SEC team, and then another two-loss Big Ten teams. So I'm like, okay, what are they trying to tell me here? Is the game telling me that it doesn't matter if you're in a Power 4 conference and you go undefeated, they're still going to rank Big Ten and SEC schools over you? I don't want to say it's reality, but I just hope it becomes what it's supposed to. And it really is not just the best teams, because the best team in September is going to be different than the best team in December. You know what I'm talking about. There might be a team that's undefeated, but they struggled down the stretch. Yeah. Does that mean that they're not worthy of being in the
that was the whole thing
playoff?
against Florida State, right? They actually overcame all these injuries and the things that happened to them. And you see it with baseball. It kind of worries me because college football has a very similar setup now to baseball. A couple teams have their own TV deals. There's a lot more money going to certain teams, and there's no salary cap, basically. And so you start looking at that, you're like, wait, that's baseball. And the Dodgers and Yankees are getting all the best players. And there's about 6 teams that make the playoffs every year now. So I'm like, I hope it. I mean, but then you look at it and it's like, I guess over the last 10 years, only 15 different teams made the college football playoff.
Yes.
You start thinking about that and you're like, the game's already been pretty top loaded. So maybe at least having the 12-team tournament, I'm excited because as a BYU fan, it gives me hope that, hey, we can sneak into the top 12.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're sneaking into the top 4 ever, but we can get in the top 12.
Yeah, but as BYU or Baylor, if you lose 2 games, unless you win the conference championship, there's a good chance you're not going to be there.
Yeah.
But I think it all feeds itself.
Yeah.
Right. If you just look at it, people will say, hey, follow the money. I'm like, I'm not a follow the money guy. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I just work on facts.
Yeah.
Florida State was the very first ever Power 5 team to go undefeated in the regular season and not make the college football playoff.
Yeah.
First ever. So that to me, I want to celebrate the fact that they were able to do what they did with a second and third string quarterback after losing Jordan Travis. I'm not going to throw punches at them for it. I'm not going to try to kick them and laugh at them because they didn't make it. Now fans might, and like I get it, like fans are fans.
Well,
like,
and Florida State they have a lot of enemies they built up over the years because they were beating their ass.
Yeah, exactly. And fan is short for fanatic. So like that's not what I'm talking. I'm more like, this is more like guys like myself in my position talking on a national scale who have a platform. This isn't the time to kick them when they're down.
Agreed.
But when you look at winning should mean something, right? And in this version of college football playoff, getting those conference champions in there is huge, right? And then you have those other spots to fill the next 12. We just got to make sure that those are filled with teams that have earned the right to be there, not just because of the conference they play in.
Amen, man. Well, Robert, thank you again so much, man. I'm just a fan of you as a person above all else, but yeah, man, appreciate your time and look forward to connecting again.
No problem. Appreciate you, brother.